Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome management consultant and member of the 2012 HIV/AIDS Conference Planning Committee, Osborne Nurse.
Good morning. One of the highlights that we've talked about during the course of the morning and during the course of the whole conference has been where we go from here. How do we sustain our conference? So permit me to start in dealing with that particular matter by borrowing from Machel, Montano, and Kesh and those types. Question they often ask you in the middle of a fit. Question, my question. Tell me what you think. Has this been an astoundingly successful 2011 Caribbean HIV conference? I thought you would agree with me. Thank you. The panel on sustainability of this conference started with a questionnaire. And the question, one of the results of the questionnaire was that this conference should be repeated at least once every 3, maybe 4 years. Do you agree? Yes. Let me hear you. Do you agree? So what do we need to do to achieve that? Learning from the experiences of the International AIDS Society and from the recommendations of others, we need to put in place a permanent institution responsible for the planning of this conference, a permanent secretariat. Secondly, we need to place responsibility on that secretariat for not only organizing the conference on the target date or dates, but for coordinating the research objectives that we've heard so much about during this conference, for communication and promotion at both policy and other levels, including at the community level, for the mobilization of funding, other resources, and public education outreach, and we keep hearing this, for monitoring and evaluating what has come out of this and each engagement that we have in the future. The next major requirement is to secure funding. Paul Kawata, in addressing this sustainability panel, says, a conference of this kind, hosting 2,500 participants, registered participants, and that is what we have done, 2,500 registered participants, needs to secure funding. And we have to advocate for fiscal allocations, for the contributions of the private sector, and for our own participation from a financial point of view in order to be able to finance an undertaking such as this. Finally, we need to adhere to what has been described to me as the 3 1s. 1 plan, 1 coordinator, and 1 monitoring and evaluating mechanism. So if we are going to have a conference like this again in 3 years or so, these are the things we have to do. So I want to suggest to you that we have to do, that our next step should be to create a task force to develop the strategy and plan for our being able to do what I just talked about. A task force whose membership would include a core of some of the persons who became and were, for the last 2 years and some, the core of the planning committee for this conference. And although I'm a member of it, I'm sure it is not inappropriate for me to ask you to acknowledge and recognize the work that the planning committee and the steering committee have put into it. So we are advocating that this task force include a core of that planning committee, along with other coordinators and collaborators of this conference, and as well be allowed to co-opt other persons into the planning and preparation. And to ask that task force to report on its proposals and recommendations within 3 months. This may seem a high order, but when we consider that this conference took 2 years and some to plan, if we're going to have a conference in 3 years or so, we have to commit to the planning of it within the next year. And the suggestion has been made that the report in 3 months may be made to a central organization like PANCAP as a means of disseminating it around the region at policy level and at community level. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what it will take, we believe, to have this conference in 3 years or so. I trust that you endorse this approach. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the new UN envoy to the Caribbean on HIV/AIDS, Dr. Eddie Green.